fully dive into 2026, can I talk about what I read in 2025? You know, I don't recognize the new year until February. This is just the warm up. Okay, so I started off 2025 with one of my usual reads. It's called The Second, Race and Guns in a Fatally Unequal America. I believe my friend Blaine Bondi recommended this one. Thank you. I do grab all y'all's recommendations. Sometimes it takes me years to get to them. This is right on line with what I like to read. History, often through the lens of race, because I feel like this is something I did not get in school. I love nonfiction, love history. The thing is, reading books like this do often make me sad and or angry. And so my brother was like, do you ever read anything that makes you happy? And I was like, you know what, hardly ever, but I'm more informed. So I left this alone, which was a great read. And I was like, you know what, I am gonna read happiness. I'm gonna read about love. I chose From Scratch. You guys may know it from the Netflix series. Now which is funny because I'm on TV, I always prefer the book over the TV version, but I saw some of the TV version and I thought, okay, whatever. But I'm like, I bet you I would love the book. And I loved the book, but here's the twist. I picked it up to read about love and okay, spoiler alert, pause, but I think if you followed this series, you know what happens, okay? Husband dies, and so what I loved about the book, it's one of the most accurate portrayals of grief, or most relatable portrayals of grief that I've ever read after I went through a lot of loss, like a few years ago. If you were following me then, you saw I was posting a lot of books about grief, looking for something to like understand what I was going through, and all of it felt performative and exaggerated. This is the most accurate portrayal I've ever seen. So yes, I recommend it if you want a lovey-dovey book. I more recommend it if you are going through grief or you want to understand what grief really feels like. I think she did a great job of that. Then up next, of course, at the beginning of last year, we were dealing with the wildfires here in California, and I kept hearing that Octavia Butler, this Black author from Pasadena, had predicted the fires. I kept hearing this in her novels. And so I was not familiar with her work. So I picked up The Parable of the Sower. Okay, so she wrote this book in the 90s, and she's imagining what Los Angeles will look like in the 2020s. And it is quite eerie. She writes about a post-apocalyptic Los Angeles. You don't exactly know how things have ended up, how bad they are, but it's like this bad scene, and people are always setting fires, and people are doing terrible things to each other. There's a measles outbreak. It's just like weird little details like that where you're like, when you were writing in the 1990s and playing with your imagination, how did you come up with so many things that ended up being true actually in the same time period you were imagining? I don't know, quite insane. But then I went down a rabbit hole of her work and read, you see my life, the dog hair, and read the follow-up to this one. They were phenomenal, but I'm not gonna lie, they took me into like a dark world and I had to get out of there. But I'm crazy. So my way of getting out was to read No More Tears, which is essentially an expose on the company Johnson & Johnson. We're probably all familiar with the powder, right, that women were using, which led to cancer. But it turns out Johnson & Johnson did a lot more terrible things that they knew about. And there's documentation that they knew it was happening, was hiding it. It's actually quite horrific. It's written by a New York Times writer, which is usually my favorite books of all time. Because you see the book, like I love just like facts and a storyline and every single detail. I'm not gonna lie, this one was not my favorite though. I liked the information in it. I didn't always like the cadence of the writing. It just wasn't for me, but it was cool. It's exciting. I went to Paris last year. One of the books I picked up in the bookstore was Josephine Baker's memoir. I enjoyed this. It's a quick read. She has a crazy life. Let me just give you one line to see why I liked her. My dog Phyllis and her husband, who's as fat as a hot water bottle, both of them were sleeping in my lap. Josephine is crazy, but my kind of girl. I could see my dog having a husband. Anywho, she's nuts. She has a crazy life. I liked this read. My mentor, Kim Bondi, shout out to her, got me The Law of Attraction. Much needed. I feel like it gave me a good mental reset. Lab Girl. I thought it was okay, but what I really loved about it was like the portrayal of the life of a woman scientist, which I don't know that I've ever seen in such detail or really knew what that entailed. So I appreciated that about this book. And I ended the year with a bang. Okay, again, I take recommendations. Sometimes it takes me years to get to them. This time I was like, no, I'm going to read the book that everybody keeps telling me is amazing, Catabasis. It's a fiction book, which I used to only read fiction. I know it's crazy now. I mostly read nonfiction. And it's a story of two students going to hell to save their professor. This book is so good. I read it in like a couple of days. It's really phenomenal. And so I started off the year with another fiction book. I believe my friend Jacqueline sent this one to me, and she only reads amazing things. So I'm kicking this off as my first read of 2025. What year is it? Okay, as my first read of 2026. I'm not even gonna edit that out because honestly, that's truly where my brain is. This is what we're gonna start with. You guys know I'm always looking for new suggestions. I love talking to you guys about books. I'm gonna do a better job of talking to you about them as I read them and not just stacking them up at the end of the year. But let me know what you read last year that you love, what you're reading to start the year off. My book lovers, let's unite.